Hey everybody, it's Patrick. It's Tuesday, and on Tuesdays I talk about long hair. Now today I'm going to do a really quick video. I know in my long hair videos I tend to talk a lot, so this one's going to be a little bit quicker, but it's probably not the quickest video. But it is Halloween night when I'm recording this, and I have already had some trick-or-treaters at the door, so I'm being interrupted while I'm making this video, and I'd rather be handing out candy to the kids this Halloween night than recording another video. So this one's going to be a real quick one. One of the most common themes in questions that I get about long hair and long hair care is how do I keep from getting my hair to fall out? You know, how do I keep my hair, how do I keep my hair is basically the question that I get the most. Guys especially are very concerned with hair loss. And one of the things that can cause hair loss is the way that you brush your hair. Taking care of your hair is not just about washing your hair, using the right products, and maintaining that. One of the most important things that you can do is use proper brushing techniques and to take care of the tools that you use in order to brush your hair. So today I'm just going to go over 3 really quick tips on how to brush your hair properly. Now, just as a caveat, I want to make sure that we are talking all about the same thing, which is hair like mine, which is straight hair or hair with a bit of wave to it. If you have curly hair, if you have kinky hair, if you have hair with a lot more texture, these are not going to be exactly the tips that I would give you. And in fact, there are some really great YouTubers out there who do a lot of hair care tips about curly hair, kinky hair, African American hair. So definitely when you're getting advice from anybody about hair, it's usually helpful if they're not a professional. I'm not a hair stylist, to go to someone who has hair that looks the way that you want your hair to look and has the same texture as your hair does, because doing advice or giving advice when it comes to your hair, you definitely want to have someone who has had some experience with that type of hair, and I have absolutely no curl to my hair at all, so I really don't have any advice about how to take care of curlier hair or kinkier hair. So like I said, probably best to go to someone who has experience with that and can tell you what has worked for them. Now, the first piece of advice that I would give you is something that you've heard a lot from anybody if you have been following anyone who talks about long hair, and that is to always make sure that your hair is dry before you brush it. That doesn't mean that you have to leave it in a tangled snarl after you've washed it or if it gets wet. Usually finger detangling and then using a very wide tooth comb are enough to make sure that your hair can get detangled after you've had a wash, after you have been, say, swimming, or if your hair has gotten wet for any other reason. So you don't have to leave it just clumped up. My hair does tend to, you know, just clump and snarl after I have washed it. You can use a very wide tooth comb to comb through it, but your hair is very delicate when it's wet. So if you are brushing it can easily break it, and that's the main problem with brushing your hair while it's wet, is that you're going to get breakage because the hair stretches longer when you have wet hair, and that stretch can eventually just snap, and then you'll just break it right off at the ends. Now, the next piece of advice I would give, the second piece of advice, is to make sure that you're using a brush that works for your hair type. Generally, you're going to want to use a brush that is not going to snag your hair. While boar's hair brushes, boar bristle brushes, tend to be very good at making sure that your hair gets a lot of shine, if you are just detangling your hair, you probably don't want something that is going to grab onto your hair and pull it, because in addition to breakage, if you are doing this while your hair is dry, if you snarl your hair around the bristles of your brush, then you are going to pull it directly out at the roots, and that takes a lot of time to grow back. I am a big fan of these wet brushes. This is actually the wet brand of brush. They are meant to brush your hair while wet, but again, I'm not a big fan of brushing wet hair. I use these because they have bristles that don't have that little ball at the end of the bristles. A lot of paddle brushes have these pretty large size round bits, little balls at the end of the bristles, and those can snag your hair really quickly, especially if you have a finer textured hair like I do. These wet brushes don't have that, and so when I pull it through my hair, I don't feel that snapping. I don't feel it pulling and pulling. You know how you can feel it when you're brushing your hair against your scalp when it's actually ripping hair out of your head? I don't get that with these wet brushes. The bristles are also much more flexible. So while I'm brushing my hair, those bristles tend to just go with the flow, and if I find it snagging, they're not going to just pull my hair out as well. Now that's what works for my hair. What I would say is find a couple of different brushes that work for your hair and then use them appropriately. If your hair is very snagged, you might want to use a more delicate brush. After you have all of the knots and tangles out of your hair, then you can use something to give it a bit more gloss, to pull the oils from the top of your hair from the scalp all the way through your through the strands of your hair, which is something that's very important when you're brushing your hair. You are not only getting rid of tangles and making it look the way you want it to, but the act of brushing from the top of your head down to the bottom like that, that is actually something that pulls the oil from your scalp, the natural oils that you need for your hair to maintain its moisture and maintain its gloss. You're pulling it through your hair strand, and the longer your hair is, the longer of a trip it is to go from your scalp to the ends of your hair, and so the ends tend to get dry if you're not brushing your hair a lot. So just use a brush that you are comfortable with, and make sure that it is something that's not pulling too much, and keep it clean. And I haven't turned this one around because this one really needs a cleaning, but keeping your hairbrush very clean also gives less of something for your hair to snag on. It can snag on the other hair that's all been wrapped around these bristles and pull out of your head. So a brush that works for you, a delicate brush, and a brush that's clean is really important. And the third and final thing, just before I go upstairs and start distributing some more candy to the trick-or-treaters, is always brush your hair from the bottom. And what I mean by that is a lot of us who were used to having short hair are used to brushing our hair by just starting at the top and pulling all the way through and going all the way down the hair shaft. And when your hair is detangled, when you're starting to, or when you're finished brushing your hair, brushing out the tangles, getting it nice and straight or nice and evenly distributed if you have a bit more wave. Once you can pull your fingers through your hair like that, you can start from the top and work all the way down. You can just brush your hair right down, do that gently. But if you have some knots and tangles, if you have just dried your hair, if your hair has just air dried, you're going to have a lot of tangling at the bottom. And that's generally, your hair doesn't tend to tangle too much right up at the top of your head, but it does tangle as your hair gets longer, where it can all just kind of twist up around itself. So starting from the bottom of your hair, always start from the lower third of your hair and pull your hair down like that. And it does help to hold your hair in your hand and start to brush it that way. And then work your way up the hair shaft until you can get to the top. Do that on both sides, sectioning off your hair into areas that it's easy to get the tangles out first, and then work your way up to the top until you can pull your brush through your hair completely without pulling on your scalp. If you feel any pulling on your scalp, like you're going to pull your hair out, just stop, start working your way up from the bottom. And it may take a little bit more time, but you're going to save your hair in the end. I'm here every Tuesday with long hair facts for men, and in fact next week is going to be my 100th video about long hair for men. It's been a couple of years since I started growing my hair out. Actually, this coming January will be 3 years that my hair has been growing, and I've been about 2 years giving advice and my experience with growing hair. If you've got any questions about long hair, please leave them in the comments below. I would love it if you'd subscribe and keep up with all of my updates. I am here, like I said, every Tuesday giving advice and answering questions about long hair for men. Thanks so much for joining me this time. I hope to see you again next time.